All right, g'day guys. It's been quite a while since we've been in the workshop. Not in the normal workshop today. We are at the farm still. So what I thought I would do is while we were here is bring up the Ransomes Gazelle and start pulling it apart. So what is it? It is a cylinder mower, but it is not self-propelled. So this is a two-stroke Villiers motor. It's called a Villiers Midget. It's 98 cc's, two-stroke motor, and dates back, between 1949 to 1955. So late 40s to mid 50s. It is a really interesting machine in that I've never seen one before. It's got pneumatic tyres on the sides, and these are the original tyres because they are full of cracks and whatnot. One of them is holding air pretty well after I pumped it up about a week ago, although the left side is not. But for a machine from the early 50s, that's still pretty impressive that those tyres are still holding air. At the back of the machine, there is a timber roller. That is not adjustable too much, although there is some springs and an adjusting mechanism in here, which should allow at least for it to move up and down. The interesting thing is that this rear roller is attached to the bed knife. So you don't adjust the reel on this machine as you would normally, say with a Scott Bonner or something like that. You don't adjust the reel to the bed knife, you adjust the bed knife to the reel, which is really interesting and something that you don't really see very often. At the moment, it is spinning, although it is catching a little bit, so that'll need to be adjusted as we get there in the tear down and put back together process. But for a machine of this age, the condition is actually really, really good. To adjust the height of cut, what you do is at the back of the machine, while we're here, there is a knob, and you turn this in so clockwise lowers the body of the machine by adjusting the height of these pneumatic tyres. So these run on an axle underneath. I'm not sure if you can see it all that well, but there is an axle that runs through here. So this is a solid axle, and these come off on like a little dog leg type bracket, which I'll show you when we pull it apart. So to adjust the height, you turn that knob, and in turn there is a screw here which passes through a nut, essentially, which is threaded. And as you tighten it in, it moves it up and down, or loosen it, moves it up and down. What else can I tell you about the machine? There is a very faint sticker that was put on here. This would have probably been painted in enamel, but I am a little bit cautious of sandblasting this because I don't know if there's any lead in the paint, so I'll need to do some more research to figure that out. But paint stripper might be okay. There is a small decal here, which I'll take some photos of and put up, which says by appointment to, it's hard to make out. It's either Her Majesty or His Majesty, whoever was around at the time, because Ransomes was the royal provider of mowers in that period. There is a centrifugal clutch. That wheel is terrible. On the side of the machine here. And from what I've seen online and what I've read, these are a really easy and simple motor to pull apart and service. And they sound pretty cool when they're running. So that's definitely going to be, the goal is to get this running. I'm not going to replace the motor. It's just going to be as is, as original as possible. I have had the colour matched. So I went to VG Auto Paints in Girraween and took a wheel with me, and they were able to match the colour. So when the time comes, I just ring them up with the code and order a quantity of paint to go with that. What else can I tell you? Oh yeah, so this was one of two in a family. So this is called a Gazelle, which is an 18-inch model. They made a 20-inch model called the Antelope. Now that model was self-propelled and proved much more popular in the Australian market, particularly when they were introduced here from overseas, because it was self-propelled. A lot of these mowers, I've seen pictures of them being used to mow the grass and turf around bunkers and that kind of thing, where perhaps access was tighter and you couldn't really get a cylinder mower with a rear roller in there without it possibly being too heavy or because of the angle or anything like that. This is where the pneumatic tyres really helped in get some traction in those areas. I also, through some reading and through some research, particularly on the Outdoor King forum and the old lawnmower collectors group that's online, when these mowers were introduced, they were really quite expensive. I'll put up the cost on the screen when I have another look, but they didn't sell a whole heap of them, which is why they are rare as hen's teeth. You'll probably find the 20-inch a little more than you'll find the 18, but this is a really cool little unit, and I'm sure it'll be a lot of fun to use on whatever grass that I get to try it on. What happened towards the end of their life, or the end of their kind of reign in the mid-50s, there was a lot of the machines were purchased by councils or golf courses. They were sold off because we had other machines coming in, like Ransomes introduced a whole bunch of other mowers that were self-propelled with rear rollers as well. You had Leeds and you had Greens, all sorts of other machines, and then you had, of course, Scott Bonner coming into the Australian market and doing really quite well. So when these machines were sold off, what tended to happen is they would take the motor apart. They would get three, 4, 5 of these machines and build them into a pull-behind gang system, which is really quite ingenious for the time, because essentially that's how they're set up. They're set up, or they can be set up in a gang style to pull behind a tractor or other implement. So enough yakking. We will get into tearing this down. Today's goal is going to be to get everything apart into each of its components, and we'll probably start with the motor, probably start with the wheels actually, and then see if we can get the side cover off, just to have a look at how that mechanism works. If you've seen one of these or you know of anyone that's got one, please let me know in the comments. I'd love to have a chat and work out a bit more of its history, and perhaps where it was used. And also, if anyone has restored a Villiers two-stroke like this, really keen to hear from you. There are a few videos online which I've had a look at, but they are a little interesting little machine, little motor. So let's get into it. So this is the Ransomes Gazelle. They were manufactured from 1949 up until about 1955 out of Ipswich. The company's name is Ransomes, Sims and Jeffries Limited, based in Ipswich. This is an 18-inch Gazelle and Mark II model. You can see the model number there. They were produced in not very large quantities, which is why you don't see very many of them around. It has a larger brother machine, which is called the Antelope, and that was a 20-inch machine. And that one was self-propelled, whereas this one is just a push mower. It's really interesting to see at the back of the machine, or underneath the machine, I'll just tip it up for you, that the blade, or the cutting reel, is not adjustable in height. So what generally happens with this machine is you will adjust the bed knife and the rear roller with this spring and nut mechanism like this on either side. And what that does effectively is adjusts the bed knife to the reel. That's very different to a Scott Bonner, where you would generally adjust the reel to the bed knife. So that's just another interesting fact and feature about this machine. This is the height adjuster knob on the back, and you can see that if you turn it to the right, we are lowering the height of cut, and if we turn it to the left, left is lower and right is raise. And what that does, just tip it back so you can see it, what that does as we adjust that knob is you can see it working in there. So we are raising the wheels, or in fact, we are turning the axle that the wheels are mounted on, and they're adjusting the height of cut. So this is a solid axle that runs through, like a cam mechanism when we have a small dog leg shaped bracket, and then these wheels attached to two small axles, I guess for a better word, or spigots on the sides. On the top, we have a Villiers 98cc two-stroke engine. It was known as the Villiers Midget. So 98cc two-stroke engine. You would have to run a pull cord around the magneto here, and as you pull that, or the flywheel, and then you'd get it started. Really quite a simple machine that works really quite well. You've got a fuel tap on the side here, which works. You've got your carburetor assembly. So what you would do to start this machine is you'd fill it up with fuel, open the fuel tap on the back, prime the carburetor until a little bit comes out here. Then you've got your choke mechanism. So full choke closed, and that to open and run. So I just want to show you the height adjusting mechanism in here. So what I've done is I've undone some nuts that attach to the bottom of the bed knife here. So one is a fixed bolt and the other one is attached at the top, at the front, sorry, to a spring. So obviously the spring, there's a bolt that runs through in the middle of the, or through the center of the spring. You can see the bolt there. So this spring runs around that and obviously provides tension to a nut underneath that. So when you're adjusting the reel to bed knife contact on this machine, you are adjusting the bed knife to the reel, not reel to the bed knife. So that's just a point of difference, something that I only noticed pulling this one apart and having a look at it. The general condition though of the underside here is pretty good. It is going to prove to be quite a pain to get this axle out here. There is a small grub screw underneath. Not sure if you can make that out, but there is a small grub screw under there. That's going to prove difficult to get out without stripping, so I might just let that one soak for a little bit before I try and undo it. The reel, as I mentioned to you before, is a fixed reel, and it's spinning quite freely. The bearings don't really feel particularly gravelly, but it would be interesting to know whether you can actually adjust the chain tension. I'm sure there's a way of doing that, just have to get through all this grease to figure it out. But there might be a way, there might be a way of doing it. This is I know the machine's upside down, but I'll explain it to you anyway. So this is the little spigot that the pneumatic wheels attach onto, and inside the wheel there is, looks like a keyway, but runs through here and attaches to the back of the wheel mechanism. The other thing that is going to prove difficult is getting this height adjuster screw off. So in there, I'm not sure if you'll be able to see it, provide some light so you possibly can see it, but the height adjuster again is held on with a collar and a grub screw. So similar to the front, the rear roller axle there, getting that off is going to be difficult. Okay, so we might call it stumps on the teardown for now, only because I don't know how to get these sprockets off in their drive mechanism here. I don't know whether they're pressed in or left-hand thread, right-hand thread, whatever. I did find behind here a little bearing cover and a felt or foam. It's not foam, it's like a felt, I guess it is felt, on that self-aligning bearing in there. Yeah, so I'll let a few things soak so I'm not stripping or ripping anything apart, and we'll come back for part 2.